To the 2014 Junior Grant Board Candidate Forum. Thank you all for coming, especially our candidates. We appreciate you showing up. A few years ago, we had the idea of this forum. We wanted to get to know the candidates better. We felt their statement of availability really wasn't sufficient enough for us to get to know the people who were electing to eventually become the Grand Master of our jurisdiction. So I will read you the rules. And then I'll give each of the candidates a moment to introduce themselves. I'll ask the first question, and we'll go from there. The rules are, we will read each question aloud. Each of you will be given 3 minutes to respond. At the 1 minute mark, Brother Timer, Virtual Brother Jay Losey, will give a visual sign. Please demonstrate visual sign. Thank you.
Plus, this will be counting down.
You have a visual timer there as well. At the 30-second mark, you'll give an audible signal if you have 30 seconds remaining.
30 seconds.
At 10 seconds, you will do another one for 10 seconds.
10 seconds.
If you speak after your time is up, I'll wrap you down. And then move on to the next candidate. If you speak during another candidate's time, I will also wrap you down. If you go off topic, you'll be wrapped down. Please respect your fellow candidates and the forum by not speaking out of turn or off topic. If you repeatedly wrap down, you'll be removed from the line. That's me. Candidate number 1 will answer question 1 first, followed by candidate number 2, then 3. Candidate number 2 will answer the second question first, followed by candidate 3. And this will continue in a round-robin format until our time runs out, where every question has been asked. If there is time at the end, you'll each be given 3 minutes for any closing remarks you wish to share. You can ask for a clarification or for the question to be reread at any point during your time, and that response will not be deducted from your time allowance. Are there any questions before we begin?
Would you like us to stand to answer the questions, or are we free to sit? Or
feel free to repeat. I think that'd be easiest for our camera crew as well.
all right.
So, without further ado, before we ask the first question, could you please introduce yourselves, starting with candidate 1?
I am Warren Chauvin, Grand Lecturer of the Most Worshipful Grand Lodge of Free and Accepted Nations of Washington, a member of Arlington Lodge 129 in Arlington, Washington.
Candidate 2.
I am Charles Davis. I'm a member of the Bylaws Committee and the Charity Committee and Chairman of the Military Recognition Committee, and I'm a member of Virtual Lodge.
Candidate 3.
I am Jim Kendall. I'm the Grand Chaplain and Chairman of the Public Relations Committee and the Tribune Committee, which is folded into it. My home lodge is William H. Upton Naval and Military Lodge number 206 in Bremerton. I also belong to Franklin Lodge number 5 and Silverdale Lodge number 311.
All right, thank you, brothers. The first question, which Warren will have privilege of answering and be given 3 minutes. After he answers this question, we'll move on to 2 and 3. This one was provided earlier, and it is, what changes would you like to make in Grand Lodge? Not necessarily Masonry, but specifically in the Grand Lodge of Washington.
The Grand Lodge provides very much information for the Brethren's use. Unfortunately, a lot of Brethren do not go to the Grand Lodge websites nor take advantage of the committees that are available to assist them in their lodges. I would present going back to more multi presentations and offer more workshops throughout the jurisdiction, providing workshops for the district deputies, for the worshipful masters, and I would like to involve the senior wardens competition into a proficiency in lodge management to be incorporated with it. What we do have is a lot of problems with worshipful masters not being familiar with the Washington Masonic codes and with the proficiency in lodge management provided to the senior wardens at the competitions. They would be more proficient at the time when they proceeded to the East as worshipful master of their lodges. These brothers are also the potential prospects for future district deputies, and this is knowledge that they definitely need in the future to assist them and their lodges. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate number 2.
I believe that the Grand Lodge office needs to better communicate some of the decisions that they have made to the lodges and the brethren, especially the secretaries. A good example is the requirement that the lodges submit the audit form that they're supposed to do to Grand Lodge this year. It was a perfectly good explanation for that. However, it didn't come out until the latest issue of the Tribune. And I know there was at least one secretary in my district that was very upset with Grand Lodge for requesting that without explaining why. So we need to have the Grand Lodge office explain the reasons that they are requiring items from all of the different lodges. I also think that some of the material that Grand Lodge has needs to be updated. For instance, the new candidate education program. The one that I was just looking at from my lodge still has requirements in it, such as in order to become a Shriner, you have to be a York Rite or Scotch Rite Mason. Things like that need to be updated and resubmitted to the different lodges. Thank you.
Candidate 3.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to come here today, first of all. The long-range plan that has just been issued carries a lot of information and frankly explains why I chose to run and the things that I want to see change. I think that one of the biggest issues is one that was brought up earlier by one of the other candidates, and that's communications between the Grand Lodge office and the lodges. We had some difficulties at this last Grand Lodge annual communication, and the direct cause of that was a failure of communication between the Grand Lodge office and that lodge, and I believe the same held true for the other 4 lodges. Our weak link is who all that communication goes to, and that's the secretary of the lodge. And if the secretary of the lodge is not responding, no one else is notified. So now we wait until 2 or 3 months have gone by, and then we want to go shoot the lodge. Well, we need to change that. We need to make this communication channel more efficient, and we need to involve more people who are responsible for each of the lodges. So that's one of my goals, is to see that happen. I have seen in the last several years, it seems like the focus of the operation of the Grand Lodge has shifted to management, governance, and administration. And consequently, the needs of the fraternity from the individual Masonic standpoint of our obligations to each other has suffered. And what I intend to do, whether or not I'm elected, is to help shift that focus. And you'll see also in the long-range plan that exact statement, and I support and echo that. And I will tell you that I developed my idea before they came out with that long-range plan. So we're all thinking from the same document. We have a lot of work to do. The old saw about doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result has been applying to us for too long. And we need to completely revisit what we are doing and why we are doing it. And if we are doing it, are we doing it for the good of masonry or for some other reason? So, complete look, top to bottom, everything from committee structures to the district meetings, how they're conducted and where they're conducted. So all of those things need to be focused on the good of the lodge and the individual mason.
Thank you. Brother Steve wants to ask the next question.
All right. So the next question is, what do you think the most pressing issue facing Washington Masonry is today, and what do you suggest be done about it? Candidate number 2 will be the first to answer.
I think that the most pressing issue that is faced by Washington Masonry is the membership. We are losing members, And some of the lodges are making members, but not making Masons. We need to increase our membership, but we need to guard the West Gate, get people in who are Masons in their heart, good men that we can help make better. We need to educate our new brothers, and for that matter, some of our older brothers, in what the philosophy of Masonry is. We need to mentor all of our new candidates. We don't need to be losing brothers because they don't know what to expect when they come into lodge and take the first or second degree and decide this is not what they want. So we need to do a better job guarding the West Gate, explaining to potential members what we are about, and educating our members once we initiate them.
Thank you. And number 3.
There's so many things that are pressing, it's hard to point at one and say, this is the one. But I think that one of the most pressing issues, in a sense, is what Brother Charles just said, and that's how we treat our membership. We need to be mentoring our members, we need to be caring for our members, and ensuring that whatever it is they need to be successful, we provide to the best of our abilities. All too often we see members initiated, for whatever reason, we don't see them again. In part, that's because they weren't prepared to advance, they weren't thoroughly vetted, and then when they were initiated, we didn't have an active mentor to help that individual learn more about what it's about and how to succeed. How we treat our lodges, how we treat our Masons, to me is one of the priorities that we need to address. And if we address that particular part of the equation, then we go a long way to fixing all the other problems that we're facing. If we do that, we'll get our members more involved. If we do more things of interest in the lodge that can bring them in to allow them to participate, that's part of it. So the membership of the lodge is, to me, is the first, last, and that's where we need to be concentrating to assist, because if we fix the membership, how we treat them, as I say, the rest of it will fall into place.
Thank you. Candidate Moore?
I believe education is the priority, educating the elected and appointed officers of the lodge what their duties are. It was explained to them in their obligations. Along with that, the business aspects of the lodge. It seems like a majority of the lodges do not realize that they are a business until they've been backed into the corner and they've got some liabilities out there, and all of a sudden they're in jeopardy. The situation is the Grand Lodge went to bat for 13 lodges last year that had lost their not-for-profit status, and at a total of $45,000. And I believe at this time only one of them has got that status back. The other 12 are still in limbo. And while this information was passed on to all the lodges within our jurisdiction, it should have been enough notice to the other lodges to do something about it. And now we've got temple boards, temple corporations, and or lodges at this time that are added to that list that are having their status taken away from them. So the situation is we can send out lots of emails, but at some point in time there has to be some position of the lodges that they've got to be held accountable. And it's not just the secretary or treasurer in the corner. All the members of the lodge are part owners of this business, and each one of them has to be partially responsible for the business, whether it succeeds or fails. Thank you.
Thank you, brothers. The next question, which will be answered by candidate number 3 first, is: do you support the wider spread distribution of the ritual of plain text English
If the passwords and signs were left out, why or why not?
Interesting question. My initial reaction is no. That's an argument that's been going on literally for decades, if not longer, about whether or not that should be made available. The district deputy has a plain language copy so that if a lodge or an individual gets stuck, they can go to the district deputy and get the right work. Certainly, if someone wants to go online, it's there, it's available. All of our so-called secrets are available. That doesn't mean that we distribute them, that we can violate our obligations not to write, indict, and reveal, and so on and so forth. And in a way, that's what we're doing if we do that in plain language and then distribute them. I know I believe it was last year we had a resolution so that the secretary can have a copy of the plain language version. And I kind of still a little reluctant to go that far just yet. I'm not sure what we gain by doing that if our deputies already have that available, and it takes a little effort to get the information that you're looking for.
Thank you. Candidate number 1.
I'm totally against it. For a couple hundred years, the work was mouth to ear. We had brothers that were able to meet the qualifications. Through those years, it was simplified when the ciphers were made available. We are doing everything we can to assist the brothers at some point in time if it is committed to plain text. There will still be problems why people can't do the memorization. Unfortunately, there's has to be some type of a challenge for people to join this fraternity. We are an elite organization, and there are rewards for what we do, proceed, and gain in our craft, and learning our obligations and our ritual and standard work is part of that. There again, too, any brother that has made it through the Master Mason degree has done his obligations, proficiency in each of the 3 degrees. Shouldn't have no problem with his ritual work and his stations and places in the lodge also. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate number 2.
I also am against it. I can remember the time when there were only 2 copies of the standard work. The Grand Secretary had one, and the Grand Lecturer had one. Now all of the deputies have one in the elected Grand Lodge officers. If anybody has a question on the ritual, they can talk to their district deputy. Every deputy I know is readily available. They'll come to lodge, they can answer some questions over the phone. I think putting a plain text copy in every lodge is just asking for it to be distributed more than we would like it to be. People will be tempted, I need to study this, so Brother Secretary, can you make me a copy of it? And eventually it's all over the place. The other problem with that is when we do make changes, we have more copies. If there are some unofficial copies floating around, you're working with outdated work. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. As a couple of our candidates have already alluded to, a common complaint among brethren is that there is a lack of effective communication from Grand Lodge to the members of the individuals or the lodges. Do you agree? I think we've already heard some of that. And if so, what can be done about it? And if you don't agree, why? Candidate number 2. Oh, candidate number 1.
Yes, I do believe there's problems with communications. Like they say, one of the biggest secrets is RSVP, because a lot of people do not know what that means. And the situation in some of the lodges is that unfortunately the secretaries determine at that point of entrance whether the information needs to be forwarded on. There's a lot of times I've been asked as a, put my name in for the junior grand warden, if I'm asked a lot of questions, and unfortunately, unless people go to the Grand Lodge website and see who the candidates are, a majority of the brothers in the lodges aren't even aware of who's running for the offices. There's a lot of times where the information does not go past the secretary's desk. Being a past district deputy, I would send out information asking that it be dispersed in lodge, along with information that come from the Grand Lodge, and I would talk to brothers a few days later that were never aware of the information that I'd send out to the lodges to be dispersed, and I'd visit the lodges 2 days later, and it was not read from the secretary's desk, and I would have to give it on my report at the end of the evening. So the situation is that the brothers need to be informed. The Grand Lodge has taken a step now to make sure that anything with the Grand Master's signature or the Grand Secretary's signature is read in lodge, and there was a reason why they had to come to that point. Thank you.
Candidate 2.
Would you restate the question?
Yes. A common complaint among the brethren is that there is a lack of effective communication from Grand Lodge to the members of individual lodges. Do you agree? And if so, what can be done about it? If you don't agree, why?
I definitely agree that there is a communication problem. A lot of times the secretary is the only one that gets communications from Grand Lodge. I think the master and perhaps the wardens also should be getting the communications from Grand Lodge. That will assure that more members of the lodge get communications. The secretary is supposed to read in lodge any communication from the Grand Master or the Grand Secretary. I would hope that it's being done. I know in my district it is. The communications from Grand Lodge are important to the lodge and to the members, and sometimes they have requirements that the lodge or the membership have to fulfill. So only sending it to one person can be a problem, especially if for some reason the secretary becomes ill. Some things just get lost in the shuffle. And I believe that if Grand Lodge would at least send all the communications to the master and the secretary, that would help matters greatly. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate number 3.
Oh, boy. Pick my question. Absolutely agree. Many of the problems that we've had in the recent past is a result of poor non-existent communication. If we only use the secretary as the point of contact for the lodge, we do have a problem when the secretary is not available, doesn't understand his duties, he's new, any number of reasons. If that secretary fails to do his job, the whole process falls apart. And we've seen that. And I agree that at a minimum, we need to be sending those communications to both the secretary and the worshipful master. There's nothing too expensive that says you can't also send it to the wardens. There's no reason why not. Furthermore, there's another step that needs to be taken just from a management perspective, and that's follow-up. If a requirement is laid upon a lodge and the lodge doesn't meet the deadline, you need to be following up with the secretary and the worshipful master in a timely manner. Many of these issues that we find are blowing up could probably have been resolved a lot earlier and with less turmoil if the phone had just been picked up and a question asked. And if not a satisfactory answer, there's also the district deputy. It's the deputy's job to represent the Grand Master. If there's an issue with the lodge, then the deputy needs to be called upon early to go find out if there is a problem, what the problem is, and how to fix it. And finally, we need to be approaching these not as problems to beat the lodge about the head and shoulders with, but to find out why there's an issue with this particular requirement. Why is it being done? And what can we do to assist that lodge to meet the requirement timely? So we need to be problem solving and not problem creating.
Thank you.
Okay, the next question, which candidate number 2 would field first, is the Grand Lodge of Washington has a long history of being a leader in Prince Hall recognition. Currently, we only recognize Prince Hall jurisdictions that are recognized by the mainline Grand Lodge in their state. This means there are Prince Hall Grand Lodges whom we do not recognize due to the bias of another Grand Lodge. Do you support this practice? Why or why not?
I believe that the question is, do I support the practice of only recognizing Prince Hall Grand Lodges that are recognized by their mainline Grand Lodge?
That is correct.
Okay. Yes, I do. The way that we recognize Grand Lodges, let me back up and start again. I know what I'm trying to say, I'm just having trouble putting it into words. If a Grand Lodge does not recognize the Prince Hall Grand Lodge that is in their jurisdiction and we recognize them, the chances are that Grand Lodge is going to break fraternal relations with our Grand Lodge. And I do not wish to see that happen. We are in fraternal relations with all the Grand Lodges in the United States. I believe that we should be recognizing all Prince Hall Grand Lodges. Washington recognized Prince Hall Lodges more than 110 years ago and had to rescind that because most of the other Grand Lodges dropped fraternal relations with our Grand Lodge. I do not want to see that happen again. The best thing we can do is encourage the mainline Grand Lodges that do not recognize Prince Hall to recognize our Prince Hall brothers. That is a thing that is much overdue, at least 150 years overdue since the Civil War. But until the mainline Grand Lodges recognize the Prince Hall Grand Lodge in their jurisdiction, I do not believe that the Grand Lodge of Washington should recognize those Prince Hall Grand Lodges. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate 3.
William H. Upton Naval and Military Lodge number 206, celebrating our 100th year next year. And this actually is a topic that has come up, and part of that centenary is doing a good deal of research on William H. Upton and what actually happened. I was corrected when I made the comment that we had recognized the Prince Hall Grand Lodge, and I was told no, we did not. What we did is we agreed that Prince Hall Masons were regular Masons. And that may be a distinction without a difference, but that's actually what happened. As far as whether or not we should recognize Prince Hall Grand Lodges who are coexistent with so-called mainline Grand Lodges that don't recognize them yet, I don't think it's urgent that we should do so. I think we should recognize Prince Hall Grand Lodges wherever they are, so long as it doesn't create difficulties between our Grand Lodges. There are more and more Grand Lodges in the United States who do recognize or consider Prince Hall Masons to be regular Masons, and the number that don't are dwindling, and they're dwindling quickly. This probably is going to be an issue that's going to heal itself over the next several years. I don't think it's going to continue. The Prince Hall Masons, for those of you who perhaps haven't done the research, are considered regular Masons because their charters come down from the Grand Lodge of England, as do all of ours. And those are legitimate charters. So calling them irregular is not correct, because if they are irregular, so are we. So the answer to the question is, I think that because we must maintain relations with the other Grand Lodges, the Creed accepted and ancient Creed accepted Masons, we need to tread carefully before we stir the pot in that jurisdiction. So I think it's going to happen eventually, and I don't think it's going to be all that terrible.
Thank you.
Did I answer the question?
Yes.
Okay.
Candidate 1?
I would have to agree until the mainline Grand Lodges that we do recognize, reconcile differences between the Prince Hall Lodges in their, within their states. We could possibly work with the lodges to find out what the differences are and maybe try to work with them on those areas, but until those differences were made with the mainline lodges and the Prince Hall Lodges, our status would have to remain the same as it is. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next question. Many members believe that Grand Lodge has funding issues. What funding sources do you see for the future for Grand Lodge? And candidate number 3 will be the first answer.
There's always the question of whether we have funding issues or we have spending issues. And the funding sources that we have, unfortunately, as with many of the lodges, has recently been dependent on our investments. And as everyone knows, investments went in the tank almost 10 years ago and have not recovered. So we do need to find a way to raise the money that we need to operate. Part of the long-range plan, if you download it and read it, is to reassess where our money's being spent. You know, where are our resources going? Are they going where they are providing a useful purpose, if you will? And that's what we need to do. We need to revisit the entire budget. For gaining money, I'm not going to tell you that we need to raise dues or any of the rest of it, although that is in one of the resolutions. I think before we start hammering lodges with more dues and assessments, we need to look at our expenditures and make sure that we're spending our resources wisely.
Thank you. Candidate Noah?
I would also agree. The revenues that might be forwarded from the sales of the AMRC, the monies that will be divided up at that point in time, I think will be probably dictated by the lawyers and the legal channels that where the monies will go for tax reasons. There again, too, sometimes it's like lodges. It's always easy to spend somebody else's money, and raising the revenues isn't always the best for everybody's interest. I think at some point in time, with the resolutions coming up, maybe it might be time to look at possibly a Grand Lodge secretary and a Grand Lodge treasurer. Maybe have a little separation there, and with the finance committee, we could maybe have a different look at things. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate number 2.
The revenue for Grand Lodge is going up as far as the per capita is concerned. Unfortunately, we are losing Masons. A few years ago, we had 30,000 Masons, now we have 14,000. The Grand Lodge needs to look at their budget, prioritize it, and live within the means that we have. Investments, like our worshipful brother Jim said, are in the tank. I don't know when they're going to come back. Grand Lodge does have quite a bit of money, but if it's earning 1% or 2%, that's not very good. The Grand Lodge can't keep raising per capita on the lodges. Some of the small lodges have a very tough time making their payments right now, and raising it is going to unfortunately drive some lodges out of existence. So Grand Lodge needs to prioritize and live within their means. Thank you.
Okay, the next question, which will be fielded by candidate number 1 first, is according to section 16.12 in the bylaws of our Washington Masonic Code, Before a lodge can be granted a charter, they must provide proof of its members' skill and ability to perform the work, including the conferring of the 3 degrees. Today, there are lodges in our jurisdiction that no longer can fulfill this requirement. Do you believe this is a problem? If so, why, and what solutions can you propose? If you do not believe this is a problem, why?
Basically, this is a perfect example of a long-range plan for your lodge. Unfortunately, a lot of lodges through the years, once a particular landmark for them has been broken, it does not continue. The situation is back to education. A lot of lodges and worshipful masters not even have knowledge of the Washington Masonic Code. They don't know if they're in violation or not. We've got to educate our craft, and whether it's one brick at a time, starting with the junior deacons, or what the scenario is. My one recommendation earlier was the fact of the proficiency in lodge management with the senior wardens competition. And it was basically to try to get skilled individuals to these so he can put the craft to work and give them good and wholesome instructions for their labor. If we do not have a good leader, it's hard to have a good, solid lodge. Thank you.
Candidate 2.
Unfortunately, there are lodges that do not meet that requirement. My particular lodge, Richland Lodge 283, can't confer a fellowcraft degree without either using the lecture DVD or getting a brother from another lodge. We can do everything else in that degree, and we can do all the first and the third, but we only have one brother that can give the first and third degree lecture, and he's sitting here today. We need to encourage the members of our lodges to take part in degree work, to learn the different parts, especially the lectures. The DVD lectures are okay, but nothing fulfills the candidate more than having somebody who's taken the time to learn the lectures and to present them to the candidate the evening that he gets his degree. That is an important part of becoming a Mason. As far as ritual work, there are, excuse me, there are some lodges that when you sit in lodge and the master and the wardens are reading their parts out of the cipher, to me that's unacceptable. The officers need to know their parts. They need to practice. They need to get together, do the floor work, do the ritual, so they can open and close lodge on all 3 degrees preferably. The district deputy can help, Grand Lodge can help, Grand Lecturer can help. There are lots of resources available. Brothers from other lodges can come in and help teach different officers their parts. And I think we need to get back to where all of the lodges can open on all 3 degrees and confer degrees. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate 3.
Well, I'll do it for you there, Worshipful Master. Shame on me for interrupting, my apologies. Is this, would you restate the question, please? Make sure
Yes.
I'm answering the question properly.
Absolutely. According to section 16.12 in the bylaws of our Washington Masonic Code, before a lodge can be granted a charter, they must provide proof of its members' skill and ability to perform the work, including the conferring of the 3 degrees. Today, there are lodges in our jurisdiction that can no longer fulfill this requirement. Do you believe this is a problem? If so, what solutions can you propose? If you do not feel this is a problem, why not?
I think problem is probably more harsh than I would put it. I think that it is a shortcoming, and I do think it needs to be corrected to the best of our ability. Reality is we have several of our smaller lodges that don't have enough active members to fill all the chairs. So they are forced to go outside the lodge to get other members to fill those chairs for the degree. Reading from a cipher or reading from the standard work to do your station is never acceptable. Doesn't matter if it's for a degree or for regular lodge meetings. Should be able to at least do the basic work. The senior warden competition is an absolutely excellent tool for having the upcoming Masons learn the work for opening and closing lodge, for calling up, calling down, and doing the various operations of the lodge and floor work. You start getting into degrees, it gets of course more complicated when you're talking about lectures and so on. My lodge is one of the rare few that has members who can do all the work, although they're aging and they're not going to be with us long. We've got a couple of our members learning the work. I'm not suggesting that it's easy. I am suggesting, however, that this is a talent that adds to the individual Mason's satisfaction with the fraternity by learning how to do this work and do it well. I will tell you that I have never enjoyed the East more than when our team absolutely nailed the work and was letter perfect. What a great feeling, the feeling of teamwork, and every lodge should be able to share that. How do you fix it? Again, it's the training, the involvement, and hands-on. And the hands-on shouldn't just be from the officers, but the past masters should be involved. And the master should reach out to the past masters and ask them to mentor the officers as they go through the chair. The district deputy should be involved and hold training for the districts, and it should be routine. I say should, it's not happening in every place. Bits and parts of it are happening, but the more that you see of that kind of work going on, the better work you're seeing in those lodges. Is it an issue? Yes, absolutely.
30
We should be
seconds.
doing the best work that we can. And it's repetition, training, and hands-on and caring.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next question, and Brother Charles will be the first to answer this one. Freemasonry has a long and robust history of its members contributing significantly to the building of our country, and Washington State in particular. Do you feel it is necessary to restore the craft in our state to its former glory? And if so, what can be done? And if not, why?
I believe that we do have a good history, both in Washington and in the United States. It would be wonderful to have the governor, our senators, our representatives, both state and federal, as members of the craft. To do that, we have to prove to the individuals running for those offices that we are a worthy organization. We have to do that by community outreach, by doing good things in our neighborhoods, in our cities, letting those type of people know that we exist, because a lot of them don't know that we exist. We need to work on our getting known in our communities. Grand Lodge needs to help the individual lodges do that. There are several ways they can do that. The Public Relations Committee now has a list of all of the media outlets in the state. When you're having a function, let the media know. I believe that if we work in our communities, we will attract good men. Those men will, some of them, will run for office to get elected, and that's how we're going to have to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Brother Jim?
Time out. Can I have his 3 minutes? Can I sit? Oh, okay.
No.
All right. Start the timer. This particular issue is one that has been a topic of discussion for some time, and I can only give examples. I mentioned earlier that William H. Upton Naval and Military Lodge is celebrating our centennial year next year. We are working on a 2-day event Friday honoring William H. Upton and Saturday honoring the military side of our lodge. Our members of our lodge, the early members, were significant members of the military community and the local community. Our first worshipful master was a Marine by the name of Pendleton. That may ring a bell. Yes, Major General Pendleton, for whom Camp Pendleton is named. Another one of the first 5 was a 2-star admiral by the name of Kuntz, who went on to become a 4-star admiral and chief of naval operations. Another one became 2-star Admiral Gregory, chief of naval engineering, and another one, Stanley, became chief of Navy supply, or the equivalent at the time. Significant members of the military community early in the 20th century. We are going to involve the Prince Hall Grand Lodge. We've already contacted them. We have permission to do that. We are approaching the Navy League, the American Legion, the Puget Sound Naval Bases Association, and we're going to involve them in this. By so doing, not only do we honor the founders of our lodge, but we bring the community into the celebration and educate them about the fraternity. So that is just one example of the sorts of things that we need to do more of. The Senior Grand Warden talked about marching in the parade as famous Masons. We now have decided that that's what we're going to do for the Armed Forces Day Parade, probably next year. It's too late this year. Going public. For literally generations, Masons hid the fact that they were Masons for a variety of reasons. We have gotten away from that. We've started to be more public, but we need to be more public still. We do a lot of good work in our communities and people never hear about it. And they should. They know about the Shriners Hospitals, but you ask the average person who knows about the Shriners Hospital, they have no idea that Shriners are Masons. So it's an education, and it's also us being involved in the community with our Bikes for Books, with our community events, and showing what Masons do by exemplifying who Masons are.
Thank you. And Brother Warren?
We do need more presence in the community. There are a number of ways we can do it, though. We've got to start policing our own lodges and jurisdiction. We don't need the negative newspaper reports about embezzlement of our lodge secretaries and treasurers and so on and so forth. Our buildings, we need to be thinking about maintaining the outside of the buildings. We have a public image there that we are trying to uphold, and we can continue giving lots of money away to charities, but if our buildings and the roof over our head is dwindling, that will not be helping us into the future. We do have the public relations and the news media to help us when we're out there. We need to promote ourselves more to outline lodges and stuff, and help support our program, especially when we're in the public cornerstone ceremonies, rededications, and so on. There's just a number of ways that, unfortunately, through the float, Grand Lodge float, that was a very good way of getting out in the public. Unfortunately, that went by the wayside, and being involved for a number of years with the child identification program, that was an ideal one, which kind of got went to the wayside too, and is being reformed, I guess, at this time. But we need to provide an image to the public that we're going to be proud of. Thank you.
Okay, next question, which will be fielded by candidate 3 first, is what can be done to get the Grand Lodge committees to do their job, be creative, and assist the local lodges?
Wow, have you ever hit my hot button with that one? I've served on Grand Lodge committees now probably for 13 or 14 years. And the classic is early in the Masonic year, all the members are excited, they want to work, they've got grand ideas, and by the end of the year, you can hardly find them. Keeping the committee members involved is one part, but having committee members who have the skills that you need is the other part. The flip side of this is the committees need to be involved with the district deputies, going to the districts and the lodges and not being asked, but being proactive. We have identified problems we feel in fraternity with lodges, with communications, with training and so on. Shouldn't be waiting to be asked to go out and assist in supporting the lodges in those areas where they need the support. Be proactive. Go out and set up those meetings ahead of time and make sure that everybody knows they're happening, and then do them and make them productive. For 2 or 3 years now, we had regional meetings where we had workshops by 2 or 3 of the committees or on a particular topic. Well, I think that was a step in the right direction, but we need to go a lot further than that. And we need not wait just for a district meeting to do it. We should be having workshops regularly in different parts of the state. The other thing we need to do is start using technology more smartly. This year I used the WebEx platform to have meetings twice a month with my committee. Twice a month we have scheduled a committee. It's going to be at this time. Aloha, be there. I had a much better participation rate, still not good, but a much better participation rate by doing that, by having contact from the chairman to each individual member to encourage them, find out what their needs were, see where they could help. That has helped a lot. I think it goes beyond that. The Grand Secretary does a pretty decent job of training secretaries. We need to establish workshops that are put on routinely, and again, not waiting for a district deputy to ask him to come do training. Be proactive again. Reach out and do the things that the committees are supposed to be doing and helping the lodges to do their job.
Thank you. Candidate 1.
As the deputy, I followed a lot of the deputy before me's comments to lodges to see that they did not take any of his recommendations, and recommendations that I forwarded to the lodges during my official visits, especially with the lack of membership, not enough officers to fill the chairs in lodge when some of these lodges were doing lots of degree work and had raised a lot of master masons, and yet can't keep anybody in-house, and recommending committees to come and help them didn't go anywhere. And likewise with very worshipful Brother Kendall there, I think it's going to be a situation where the deputies have to work with the committees and ask the committee chairman to contact certain lodges to make his programs available, because for some reason the male gender does not ask for help. It's whether we have a brother that cannot pay his dues, and without our investigation we'll NPD him because the brother is too proud to say that he needs help. We've got to reach our hand out to help these individuals. And we've got to make the first move, because the brothers will not ask for the help themselves, and if we want our craft to advance, we're going to have to take the initiative ourselves. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Candidate 2.
Unfortunately, it seems that some of the members of Grand Lodge Committee are more interested in having a white name tag and being introduced at lodge meetings and district meetings than they are of actually doing the job that they're supposed to be doing. That means that the committee chairman needs to encourage his members to perform their functions, and if they're not, he needs to recommend to the Grand Master that they be removed from the committee, and somebody who is interested and willing and able to do the work of the committee be appointed. The Grand Master needs to look at the people he is appointing to the committees and pick people who are willing to work not reward people for what they've done in the past, but pick people for what they are going to do in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be happy to hear that this is the second to last question. All right. The question is, what do you think is the most important or significant trait or characteristic of a Grand Lodge officer? And the first answer will be candidate number 1.
When you become a Grand Lodge officer, there are a list of expectations that you agree to. And I think following through with those commitments, being true to your word, I guess would probably be about the most important thing that you've got going for you. Follow through on your promises and commitments, your communications, I think is probably the biggest problem that we have. If you don't know the answer, at least give somebody the courtesy of saying, I'm not sure at this time, but I will get back with you, rather than just leaving people in limbo and not returning an email. As we talked to somebody earlier today, those that are involved with the lodge and the Grand Lodge will find out that you will get a whole page of emails in one day, and unless you're diligent at purging them, things that go to the second page go into the dark hole that may not ever be returned again. So the situation is you've got to be on top of it, making sure that you write yourself lots of notes and making hard copies of anything that you commit to, because no matter how much you try to remember, there are things that will slip your mind, and unfortunately somebody else has to pay the consequences for the problems that you might have created for yourself. Thank you.
Candidate number 2.
I think the most important attribute of a Grand Lodge officer is that he wants to serve the craft. If he wants to serve the craft, he's going to do the best job that he can. He's going to do the communications. He needs to want to be a servant, not just a leader, because a good leader serves the organization and the members of that organization. So the best and most important attribute of a Grand Lodge officer is to be a servant to all of the members of our great craft. Thank you.
And candidate number 3.
Oh, you stole my thunder. The Grand Secretary likes to say, I love you, brother, or anything you can do about it. And really what that does is that exemplifies essentially what Brother Charles just said, is the Grand Lodge officers, especially those we elect, need to always bear in mind that what we're doing is for the good of Masonry. It's not to receive a set of applause or any other thing that you may get by virtue of the rank you have. In several of my writings, I say that in different ways, but the bottom line is that elected officer needs to put his own personal desires aside, and as much as possible, follow the guidelines that we have. We have tools that tell us how to do certain things, and make sure that the decisions that are made and the work that's being done is for the good of Masonry. That's first, last, and always. Masonry first, self second. Now, we talk about our priorities as men, as Masons, family, faith, etc. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is when the Grand Lodge officer serves in the various capacities, he needs to constantly be asking himself, am I doing my job for the good of the fraternity? Is what I propose to do for the good of fraternity? And will it be a positive thing to do? Constant introspection, and the priority being the fraternity.
Thank you.
Okay, final question, which candidate 2 will field first. Many have voiced concern about the exclusively Christian reference to books of faith required in our ritual. Do you support an allowance for the substitution of a more generic term, such as volume of sacred law, when the situation is appropriate? Why or why not?
I have a feeling this question is going to come up here. Before I was in lodge this morning, I would have said absolutely not. You, worshipful master, made a very good point. When we obligate a brother who is not of the Christian faith, and we get to parts of the lecture where your hand was placed on the Holy Bible. No, it wasn't. It was placed on some other word. I am having to rethink my position, and I think I am going to vote for that resolution in Grand Lodge this year, just because of those few words that you said this morning.
Candidate 3.
Wow, you were persuasive. I wasn't even here and I say yes. Most jurisdictions these days now use that terminology and should. Since the Grand Lodge of England was first formed, that procedure has been pretty much honored in the English lodges. There is nothing in our ritual that prohibits doing that, to my knowledge. And I believe that any master who chooses to do that today will not be in any way condemned. However, to codify it, I think is probably a good thing. Our obligation is to the Creator. How we come to the Creator, we as Masons have repeatedly said, doesn't matter. We believe in a supreme being, we believe in the great architect of the universe. We use that terminology for a reason. So using the volume of the sacred law for the various faiths, perfectly appropriate, and I think we should do that.
Thank you. Candidate 1.
I agree also that the resolution should be passed, that we do recognize all faith is one of our principles, and that each faith that does enter our craft should be welcomed with open arms, and there should be no prejudice one way or the other. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Well, since we answered that question fairly quickly, I think we can carve out 9 more minutes and give each of you an opportunity for any closing remarks you may want to add before we shut the session down. Let's give them 3 minutes apiece. And very worshipful Brother Jim, you will start.
Oh, thanks. I think that the questions that were brought up and the answers given do a very good job of calling up the major issues that we will face, provide you with an opportunity to see the candidates, perhaps an idea of what their strengths are, and what you can expect from them as whichever one of us is elected goes through the chair. I think all of us have shown that our commitment is to the fraternity. I don't think any of the 4 candidates are more interested in the title than they are in serving our fraternity and doing what needs to be done. For myself, I think that my skills and experience are fit well for what needs to be done in the fraternity over the next several years. Looking at the long-range plan, I had an opportunity to look at it here this past week, and there's a lot of the things in the works that I think are absolutely necessary and are going to have to be handled very carefully. I believe that my skills, my experience, and my abilities will serve well in seeing that long-range plan implemented and many of the issues raised are brought to fruition. Well, I took a minute and a half.
Thank you. Very worshipful Brother Warren.
I would like to thank each and every one of you for being here today. You guys are the dedicated workers of the craft, and because you are here today, that means that you are interested and serious about what happens to your future. I've traveled with the other 3 brothers, of which put their name in for the Junior Grand Warden's position, and either way, whoever the brethren ballot on in June will have very fine individual to represent them into the future, and I thank you very much for the time today to share the time with you brothers and answer your questions. Thank you.
Very good. Very much, Brother Charles.
I would also like to thank Daylight Lodge for hosting this. It gives us a chance to explain ourselves and to answer questions that you have. Thank all the brothers that remained to hear this. I believe that whichever one of the four of us that you pick is going to do a good job. I believe that we are all dedicated to the good of Masonry and to this Grand Lodge in particular, and that whichever of us is elected Junior Grand Warden is going to be a good selection. Thank you.
Can I have another minute and a half?
Afterwards, after the gavel. So that concludes the 2014 Junior Grand Warden Candidate Forum. Thank you very much to everyone that attended. Thank you to everyone that submitted questions to us. If your question was not read, it's because we felt it was inappropriate. Many questions were addressed towards somebody currently an active officer in the Grand Lodge. So we didn't feel it was appropriate to ask the candidates about the inner workings of why Grand Lodge is doing certain things at this point. They're not there yet. Thank you to Ray and his technology committee for volunteering the equipment and manpower to videotape this. We're going to edit it and we're going to make it available to everyone in jurisdiction and online for that matter. And a special thank you to the candidates. We couldn't have done this without you, and I agree that I think our jurisdiction will be well served under your leadership. Thanks everyone.